Hi YouTube, M6CB back again with another video. Today I wanted to have a look at what is the best digital mode. I get asked this question quite a lot, and up until recently I only had Yaesu System Fusion and DMR. I've been on DMR a long time, and I've been on Fusion for a good 18 months at least now. DSTAR, I'm really quite fresh into DSTAR. I've only been on that, say, a couple of months. So having got used to the different modes a little bit, I thought I'd do a little bit of a video and see what's the best mode and try and answer a few of your questions that you've been asking me, and we'll just have a look at the different radios in brief and see what they're all about. The first one we'll look at is DMR, so we'll look at DMR first. Now DMR is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm a huge fan of it, but it does put some people off because it's not, as you may know, DMR is a commercial standard. It's was never for amateur radio. We adopted the mode and we sort of made it our own, so it's not really sort of intuitive that way for radio operators. So there's a wide variety of radios that you can get on DMR. Now this one that I've got in my hand here is the Alliance HD1. Now this is probably one of the best DMR radios, and this top of the range GPS model, you're looking at around $200. Now currently I've got an offer on with Retivis, who make the Alliance radio, so check my other video. I'll leave a link in the description where you can get $70 off this radio up until the end of June. So we've got ages left yet, so if you're thinking of this radio, now is a perfect time to get it. So yeah, DMR is really inexpensive generally. Some of the really good radios, I mean, if you were looking at a second-hand radio, you could get something like a Titera MD380. You could probably get that for about £40, maybe £50. It's quite an old radio now, and that particular radio is UHF only. Now the best way to use DMR, in my opinion, unless you have a DMR repeater near you, I mean, if you have a DMR repeater near you, you might want to look at the Retivis RT90, which is a mobile radio that will do 50 watts power, perfect for mobile. But I think personally the best way to get on DMR and use DMR is through a hotspot. Because they're absolutely brilliant. They work perfectly on a hotspot. They're absolutely, it's like they're built for it really. Now one drawback with DMR is you have to program them on the most part with a computer. Now the Alliance HD1 is supposedly programmable from the front panel, and it is to a certain point, but you really need a computer to get the most out of a DMR radio. So you really need it on a computer. Go in the programming, check my other videos. I'll leave links in the description where you can, I've done guides on how to program these, and once you've done one, they're all very much the same. So what if it's not, you know, I think I did a programming guide on the Alliance HD1, the Retivis RT3, the MD380, but they're all pretty much the same. They all follow the same basis. So once you've programmed them to your hotspot, it's perfect. I mean, you can take your hotspot with you. What I do is I've also done a tutorial on how to build your very own hotspot, so check the link in the description. I did mine for about £60. So you can get into DMR, you could build your own hotspot for £60, and then you could get a second-hand MD380 for £40, and you're basically on digital modes DMR for about £100, and you can get all around the world on that. On DMR we use talk groups. So talk groups are the way we get round on DMR. Ideally you need to program them in your radio. Now there's so many talk groups. I'll leave a link in the description to a list of talk groups, but some of the really popular ones are UK 2350, that's sort of our UK calling channel. There's Worldwide 91, which is really busy. I mean, if you put Worldwide 91 on now, it's wall to wall, you know, it just never goes quiet. And that's another huge bonus with DMR. It is so busy. There's so much activity on DMR. It's inexpensiveness of it, if you will, is what makes it so popular. You can get on it for so little money, and there's so many people that use it. But as I say, some people get put off with the programming side of it. But as I say, I've done videos on how to do it, and once you've grasped it, it's absolutely not a problem at all. But every talk group you want to get into, you're going to have to program this in your radio beforehand. So say you've got to have 2350, you've got to have talk group 91. Everything has to be programmed in this radio before you even start. Because say if I was on, now this radio's programmed, and say I want to go on, say 2360 talk group, you know, if there is one, I'm not sure. But I would have to then plug this back in the computer and reprogram a channel with that talk group in it, and then do it. It'll only take me a few seconds. It's not really a big deal, but it's not something that you can take with you on the fly, so to speak. If you were using DMR repeaters and you're, say, local to your area, and then you went on a holiday down south, or you know, a couple 100 miles away, you would have to know what repeaters are down there before you go, and program your radio before you got, you know, before you left. Because as I say, you really need the computer, or take a laptop with you and program it on the fly like that. You could do it that way. I also did a guide on a complete beginner's guide to DMR, so check the link in the description if all this is not making much sense to you and you want to know a bit more about DMR specifically. Check the link in the description, as I've done a video on that. Another downside to DMR radio is these things are rubbish on FM. So if you buy a DMR radio, chances are you're really best leaving them, using them in DMR, you know, through a hotspot, using the DMR side of it, not the analog FM. Analog FM with these is usually the audio's quite quiet. You can get by with them, don't get me wrong. You know, if you've got a local repeater, you know, analog repeater near you, and you program it in, you'll get by on it, no problem at all. You won't have an issue, but they're not ideal on analog. They're really meant for using with DMR. For example, the Alence HD1 is absolutely bulletproof. It's an amazing radio. It's such a good radio, this, so I can highly recommend this one particularly. But there's so many DMR radios on the market. As long as it's tier 2 Moto Turbo compatible, you won't have an issue whatsoever. So just make sure it's that. But for the most part, like for example, I'll give you a few examples of DMR radios that will work fine with a hotspot. The Retivis RT3S. You could use the Titera MD380, the Alence HD1. They do an Anytone radio, which is really meant to be quite good, which I hope to review one day. They also do the Retivis RT52, which is another DMR radio, and they're all very much the same. As I say, they all do pretty much the same thing, all very similar features. So that's the DMR. So let's have a look at Yaesu System Fusion. Now, I love Fusion. The good thing about Fusion is it was designed, and the DSTAR is it was designed for radio amateurs. So it's very intuitive. It's basically, you can program them from the front panel. They're really beautiful radios. The quality is amazing. They're just expensive. As I was saying on DMR, you can get them for really next to nothing. The Icoms and the Yaesus, as you'll probably know, are quite expensive. But if you know where to look and what to look out for, they're not quite so bad. For example, this Yaesu FT1D is pretty much the same radio as the Yaesu FT2D, but without the bigger screen that was touchscreen on the FT2, if you remember. Now, the FT1D has been discontinued for quite a while, and you can buy these second hand. I paid £100 for this, which is an absolute bargain. It's, you know, absolutely a bargain radio. Now on Fusion we use what we call rooms. Like on DMR we use talk groups, but on Yaesu System Fusion we use what they call rooms. Now if you want to use your Fusion radio with a hotspot, you can do it, but you can't go direct into the what they call the Wires X network. Now Wires X, you might not see it on the screen behind me, but Wires X is the system that Yaesu radios use to use C4 FM to get around the world using the internet, basically. Now, a hotspot, because it's not a Yaesu hotspot, if you will, Yaesu don't like, you know, they want to maintain the quality of their audio. I think that's the terms that they're using. You need a Yaesu radio to talk to a Yaesu repeater, for example. But if you have a Yaesu radio like this and you want to talk to your hotspot, you can do it, but you're not actually going directly into Wires X. So for example, one of the most popular rooms on Fusion is called AmericaLink. Now AmericaLink, you can get through, if I was to talk to this now and I was talking into my own node, my own gateway, or my father-in-law's gateway, or the local repeater on Fusion, then I can talk to it no problem, and I'm going to get directly into AmericaLink. But if I'm using my hotspot downstairs, I'll have to use a reflector. So someone out there somewhere has got AmericaLink running on their computer, and they will then bridge that from America Link into what they call a reflector. So it works the same way. You're going through the internet through your hotspot, and you're still coming out on America Link, but it's not as polished as if you were using Yaesu equipment, you know, Yaesu repeaters, Yaesu gateways, that kind of thing. But you can have your own node, like I have behind me. So if you want to check out my Wires X room, as I was saying before, everything on Fusion is in rooms. My room is called M6CB YouTube, and the room ID is 47528. So you can jump into my room. I'm usually monitoring it, and we can have a bit of a chat. But obviously if you're using a hotspot, you won't be able to get into my room because I don't have a bridge from Fusion to DMR. So that could be a bit of an issue. But obviously if you're close to a repeater or close to a gateway, you're not going to have a problem at all. Another good thing about Yaesu System Fusion and DMR is they use the newer codec, so that the audio quality sounds really good on both them radios. They also sound good on DSTAR. So they're all very much the same, really. A lot of people, you'll hear the Yaesu people say, oh, DSTAR's not that good. DSTAR people say, oh, DMR's not that good for audio. But they're all, honestly, I've had them side by side, I've listened to them all together, and there's really nothing in it. They all sound really good, so you don't have any issues on that. But the Yaesu System Fusion and DMR codec is the newer version. So I think it is a bit more sort of better, if you will. Don't get me wrong, DSTAR's still fine. Another good thing with Yaesu System Fusion is it's so easy to use. Say all you need to do is program your repeater or your gateway into the radio. You basically hold the Wires X button, which then sends a data tone to the repeater or gateway, and that will then reply to the radio, and then you can change rooms and everything directly on your radio, which will change the repeater's room where they are. Change rooms and everything very easily. As I say, it's a really easy to understand system is Fusion. And obviously if you have a Fusion repeater, you can talk usually in analog. C4 Fusion is a fusion between analog, FM, and digital. So basically that's where the Fusion comes from. So you can, if you have a local repeater on Fusion, you can talk to it on analog, or you can go through on digital. Another consideration you might think about when you're looking into which digital mode to go to, what repeaters or gateways are close to you. That'll have a big impact. Obviously if you're using DMR, I highly suggest you get your own hotspot, because then you're not reliant on anywhere. Obviously the other two radios will work on a hotspot as well, but DMR and a hotspot is like a marriage in heaven. They absolutely work perfectly together. So you might want to look at what's around you. If you've got more Fusion stuff near you, or DSTAR, that might influence in which way you want to go. But yeah, Fusion's really simple, really great to use. This FT1D, for example, has a full analog APRS system within it. So if you go out hiking and that kind of thing, you can use the full analog APRS that we all know, that's been around for donkey's years. Now on DMR and the DSTAR radio I have, which is the ID31, so that uses DPRS on the other two radios. It's slightly different, but yeah, really good. So obviously we've got the really good build quality with the Yaesu and the ICOMs as well. So we'll have a quick look at the ICOM now. So the DSTAR radio I use is the ID31, the ICOM ID31. Now this is an amazing radio. I did have the ICOM ID51, which was basically a VHF and UHF version of this radio. This is just UHF only, but I only use it with my hotspot. So I didn't need VHF, so I just got the cheaper version. Now you can get this second hand for about £100 as well, which is a bargain way of getting into DSTAR. As I say, that some of the ICOM radios that do DSTAR, like the ID51 and that kind of thing, are quite expensive. They can be anyway, but if you get second hand stuff, you can get them reasonably cheap. There's an ICOM 5100, which is a mobile radio, and that still holds quite good money, but you can pick them up second hand, not too expensive. Now on DSTAR we use something called reflectors, so that's how we get around on DSTAR. There's loads and loads of reflectors. I'll put a link in the description to a list of them, but the main popular ones are reflector, what they call reflector 01 Charlie or reflector 30 Charlie. Those are the two main reflectors that we use on DSTAR. The other thing with DSTAR is it's nowhere near as busy as say DMR. I think Fusion is slightly busier than DSTAR. But DSTAR and Fusion are obviously quieter than DMR. As I said earlier, DMR is really active. It's got so much going on, DMR. But DSTAR sounds good, you know. It can be a bit of a more of a robotic sound. I think I said before that the codec is slightly older on the Icon DSTAR stuff. So it sounds okay, you know. It certainly sounds perfectly fine. There's no problem at all. But we use reflectors on this, and as I say, there's two main reflectors that we use. Now the radio in the setup, I found it a little bit difficult to figure out at first on DSTAR. It's all to do with, I think it's the 8th character, so when you put your call sign in, I think, say mine is M6CEB, obviously that's the 5th, but then you would have 2 empty spaces, and then you'd have to put a B or a G. I think the B is if it was local, and the G is if you're going through the internet. So when you configure your hotspot, you need to sort of bear that in mind. Now, I'm not a pro with DSTAR. I've only had it a couple of months. I really wanted DSTAR. I've been after it for a long time, because obviously I wanted to have all the 3 digital modes so I could do videos and that kind of thing. But I'm really fresh into DSTAR, so I don't know a hell of a lot about it. But from what I've used of it, once I have it set up, it's really easy. As I say, you can program these on the front panel. One really good thing about the DSTAR network is they have this radio and the Yaesu radio both have micro SD card slots. So you can, on the DSTAR, you can put your SD card in. You can go on the Icon website and download a complete list of repeaters either in your country or in the world, I think, if you've got a big enough SD card. You can pop that in, and then if I went, like I said earlier, when I was in DMR, if I wanted to go 200 miles away, I'm going to have to pre-program the repeater, where you won't have to do that on DSTAR. So it's got GPS built into this radio, so if you went 200 miles away, obviously your radio will get a GPS lock and know where you are, and then you can pull the repeater list from your SD card of the local repeaters around you. So wherever you go in the world or country, you can basically find a repeater and it'll automatically be programmed. So that's one of its huge bonuses with DSTAR. Programming repeaters when you do it that way is really simple. But with this radio and the Yaesu radios, they program really easy. You can program them both from the front panel. They're really made for amateur radio. So I hope you found it useful. We've had a good look today about the digital modes. Now you know a bit more about them. The first thing I would consider is what is around your area. Now, if you haven't got a hotspot, it's going to be vitally important what's around your area. You might find you have more Fusion stuff, more DMR stuff, or more DSTAR stuff. Generally, in my area that I am, we have quite a lot of Fusion. We have a bit of DMR, but we have hardly anything on DSTAR. So for me personally, I would have to have a hotspot to use my DSTAR radio. Now all 3 radios work perfectly with my hotspot, apart from Fusion. It works, but as I said earlier, you have to use a reflector. You don't go directly into WiseX. So that can cause an issue. Say if there's an obscure YSF room that you want to go into and someone hasn't bridged that, then that won't be on your hotspot. For example, my room that I said earlier, my M6EB YouTube WiseX room, if you're on a WiseX node or a gateway or a repeater, you can come straight in, no problem at all. But if you're on a hotspot, as I've not bridged that yet, that could be an issue. So that's one thing to consider. What's local to you? Have a look at that, and that will sort of determine where you want to go. Now, if you've got a hotspot or you haven't got a hotspot and you want to build one, check my video. Link will be in the description, where I built my very own hotspot for about £60, and it has a screen on it and everything. Really good. So if you have a hotspot, you know, pick your poison. The world is your oyster. Whatever one of the 3 modes, you're basically able to get in, no problem at all. So I highly recommend, if you're getting into the digital side of things, get your own hotspot. You're not reliant on a repeater or a gateway. You basically are your own repeater or gateway. So hopefully this has given you a bit of an insight. With have a look around my channel. I've done quite a few videos, especially on DMR. I've done videos on how to build your own hotspot. I've done reviews on a lot of these radios, so you can have a detailed look at the radio you might be interested in. As I say, there's some really good bargains to add of some of the older digital gear, like the ID 51. You can get sort of reasonably cheap second hand. The FT1D on Fusion is really cheap now. That's a really good one to get, and it's a fantastic radio. And now the FT3D has just come out. that might even drop even further. So that's probably one I would definitely go for. But don't discount DMR either. DMR is absolutely fantastic, and once you get your head around the programming, which is really not that difficult at all, you will be blown away how busy DMR is, and it's endless. The amount of talk groups there are, it is just endless. So if you really want to really throw into digital, and you want to test the water and you don't want to spend a lot of money, go into DMR. It's fantastic, and then sort of test the waters with the other ones, as I did. I started with DMR a few years ago now, and now I have all three. And my personal opinion of which one I prefer, it's got to be DMR. It's really inexpensive. Once you understand the programming, it's not even difficult really at all once you get your head around it. It's just so busy, you just never struggle for a contact. But then next one for me would be Yaesu Fusion. It's really simple to use, really well designed and thought out. There's loads of different rooms out there. If cost is an issue, then I would go with DMR, because you can get into DMR really quite cheaply. As I said before, I did a video on how to build your own hotspot for about £60, so check the description for that. But there's loads of options when it comes to hotspots out there. There's so many you could go for. And DMR and a hotspot work absolutely perfectly together, so it's a really good option for that. But if you like quality radios, you know, I'm not saying that DMR radios aren't quality, because they are, especially the Untitled HD1, which is absolutely beautiful radio to get. But if you like your Yaesus and Kenwoods and that kind of thing, that might sway you in your decision as well. For example, the ICOM ID31 that I use is a brilliant radio, absolutely beautiful. You can tell it's an ICOM, it feels really good, it's going to last for years and years and years, and they are really inexpensive if you buy them second hand. As I say, I paid £100 for mine second hand, and it works absolutely flawlessly. Yes, it's only UHF, but if you're using a hotspot, then it doesn't matter. Most hotspots are UHF anyway, whereas the Yaesu FT1D is both VHF and UHF, so that might be a consideration. The ICOM and Yaesu work brilliantly on FM. They sound perfect on FM. If you're using your usual FM repeaters, you're going to sound absolutely fine going through there. Beautiful audio, whereas on the DMR side, FM's not really very good on the DMR radios as a general rule. The FT1D, really good radio. As I say, I paid £100 for that second hand. Really inexpensive to get into. Obviously with Fusion I've gone a bit further. I've got an FTM 400. I've also got an FTM 100 that's connected to the node there. So check out my Wires X room. I'm usually monitoring that. We can have a bit of a chat. It's room 47528 and it's called M6CB YouTube. Drop in, say hello. So it's basically whatever way you want to do. I mean, it's totally dependent on what your factors are. Obviously, if it's a cost thing, go for DMR. If it's a cost isn't so much of an issue, have a look what's around your area, repeater wise, like I said. That might sway your decision that way. So I hope you found the video useful. As I say, I'm going to be doing loads of different videos in the future on these radios and future radios. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, comment and subscribe for further videos, and don't forget to put the bell notification on so you don't miss anything when I next upload. And I've been M6CB, you've been very kind to watch. 73.